The nation is under siege. The nation is under siege.
Okay, it's Sunday evening, and that means this is Divided We Stand. That's right. It's the 1st of December, and our first show in December. If you're unfamiliar with this site, this is the Divided We Stand channel on YouTube, and you can also find us on Facebook. We are not monetized. We're not looking for money, unlike most places. We are not looking for anything aside from some forward movement, some commiseration. That's all we're in it for, okay? We're legit, okay? You'll see no ads on this show. So all we ask is that you subscribe. We don't have many subscribers, but we ask that you do subscribe if you're not subscribed. So if you're there incognito, make sure that you subscribe or share it to a friend or whatnot. We'd be happy with that. Also, we have a fairly popular Facebook page, which is entitled, rightly so, Divided We Stand. You can find us there. There are other Divided We Stands out there, but I'm sure you can find us. And please become a member. You'll be approved as long as you don't get nasty and, take the Trump view of things. So anyway, we've got a lot going on today, some breaking news and whatnot, and we'll be here to discuss it. So we hope that you will be a part of that too. Let me see if I can turn down the volume a little bit here. Yeah. And I'll introduce my co-host and good friend from Arlington, Virginia. That would be our David Price, journalist, educator, nuisance, just about everything. But he's
Brian,
here.
I have a question. Brian, I have a question. Did you go to Funeral Homes or Us to get that music you were just playing behind there?
That is copyright-free music that I got a long time ago, and it just seems like the perfect background music. You don't really even think it's there, but it's not silence, which I think is a problem. I prefer a light musical background, an ambient background, because I think it just adds.
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking to someone the other day who said, when you talk, they prefer silence. So I guess it's something that, it's all different preference of when you want the silence and when you want the sound.
Well, I will say this, though, that there is an importance in public speaking where you have to, just like in music, a rest is really important because it accentuates the note before or after.
Why do you want to get arrested? You just said arrest is really important. If you get arrested? That's what arrest is really important. So if you got arrested,
if you're going to make a point, you have to have some space in between there. So there is silence. There's an importance to silence, and how you use
that. you're saying that space is important. That's what you're saying,
don't
right?
Don't take me like literally to every single.
No. I'm just wondering. That would kind of is that an excuse or justification for what's kind of between? Oh well, never mind. Listen, you said we had some breaking news. My breaking news is the Eagles won, but why don't you let the people know? Why don't you people know what the breaking news is in America?
Right, and we want everybody to chime in on this because it does, create a utilitarian question. In the end, is it better or worse that this happened? And of course, we're talking about President Biden pardon his son Hunter, and we'll be talking about that tonight. So, Dave, I'm going to let you start off by giving us your opinion about what happened.
As a father, and Biden is a father of Hunter, I think it's a great move simply because, we know that Trump is vengeful and we know that he will take it out in any way he can. And of course, Hunter, again, we could get into a great debate tonight, which we're not going to, about the mind of the addict. He was addicted, but the point is that there were some things he did that were kind of untoward, and but certainly not as untoward as some would make it, that it was impeachable. So I think as a father, I think Joe Biden did the right thing. Now, as a president, did he do the right thing? Here would be my concern, but I still think the father part outweighs the president's part. We know that Donald Trump is planning to, or at least has talked about, pardoning all of those or the majority of those who were involved in the January 6th insurrection. And I think what this does is, well, Joe Biden pardoned his son. I'm not pardoning anybody who's related to me. Does that argument hold? I don't know. Does the argument hold that, pardoning 142 people is the same as pardoning your son? I don't know that either. I think, well, there's going to be a lot that is going to happen in positioning. I want to talk a little bit because finally got to spend some time in D.C. We've been on the road for a while. And there's obviously, stands to reason, there's more concern here than anywhere else in America right now about Trump's coming in, because you've got the concerns that we all share. What kind of president will he be? What will he do? But here you're talking about the livelihood of upwards to, 200,000 or more people whose lives are going to be affected much more than yours or mine or anybody else's will, in terms of their job security, in terms of will they have a job, in terms of will they be farmed out to South Dakota. So I think everything has to be judged through the mirror, which is a funhouse mirror, or a horror mirror, I guess, of Donald Trump. How do you feel about the pardon, Brian? What do you think?
Well, I was just trying to share this out to Environmental Coffee House. But yeah, I think it's time to play hardball with them. I don't think that it would have been of any use not pardoning him, because they would have gone after him. And you're trying to get in your ass. I think as Democrats, we can be hypocrites on this one, because I think that in the end, it's a way for Biden to say fuck you, or even leave up the notion that he still has over a month left, that he could do some more things and cause some more damage to Trump. So Trump's got to be careful. Biden could, like right now, I hear that he's going to be sending a shitload of armaments to Ukraine, so it might make up for whatever Trump doesn't give him. But I think it was a smart thing to do. The Republicans would have made this a shit show, as they already have for the last 4 years. So who cares? Because it's not really tit for tat. It's really, they did it a million times. We did it a few times. In any normal world, you wouldn't do it. But I'm tired of Mr. Nice Guy, and I think it should be a message to the Republicans that we're going to do some shit. It's time. It's time. You have to leave some blood, and I think it was the right thing to do at the right time. I don't care what the hell they say, and I think most Democrats would agree.
Well, I think, yeah. I'm saying what's going to be interesting, a follow-up on that, is the ACLU and some other organizations have launched a plea to Biden to pardon some inmates or reduce their sentences that are on death row. Because, again, Trump has already said, and we know he's going to try to play hard rock. And I don't know. Brian, we've never even talked about that. Is all the years we've known each other, I don't think we have. There are a few things we haven't talked about. What's your take? And then I'll give you mine, but you can go first. What's your take on the death penalty?
What's my take on the death penalty? Well, I think that in many cases it does act as a deterrent for crime. I think just in general, we talk philosophically about determinism, and the concept of, well, if we're not really responsible for our actions because of the determinism, then we should not be considered guilty. But I've said all along that you still have to, for society's sake, you still have to to whack somebody who's going to be whacking people. You have to be able to protect society. So the death penalty, I don't know. I mean, I think that in some cases it's good. It's, the problem is that when you do execute somebody who's innocent, that is the worst thing possible, right?
Right.
And that is,
and we've done that.
An issue, and we have done that. And so in any normal world, you know what? I think in this case, right now, it's not the right time for a death penalty across the country. I do see it as a deterrent. The problem is Trump. So I would say not at this time, because he could use this to execute you and me if he wanted to.
Well, yeah,
and that's the problem.
I think again, it's that age-old balance between societal justice, personal justice, societal injustice. I'm personally opposed to the death penalty. However, I do understand the argument of the idea that you'll be paying for this person's incarceration forever. If it's life without parole. Right. So that is kind of a valid argument. Not an original idea with me, but I think it's kind of an intriguing idea. It would put some pressure on, but it might be it might be interesting that, and a lot of times the families do testify, right? In terms of what to do. Maybe leave it up to the families. Now, some people would argue, if they say, and it's a clear conviction, then do it. The other, then we've got the legal system where it gets hung up for years and years and years and years. And then we've got the idea of, the innocent person, which we mentioned, right, being found guilty. And there are people who believe that the death of one innocent victim outweighs all the positives of 99 proper.
Right. And I think that it's a good point that, taking your point of view, if you don't have the death penalty, you still have to have some type of deterrence, and I think it's still possible to have a deterrence. Like, I'm not saying you necessarily have to gulag people, but that certainly would be a deterrent. So you say, well, we're not going to kill you, but we're going to put your ass to work.
Well, and of course, again, we fly into what's fair, what's equitable, and sometimes when I was a reporter, I remember there was a big to do over in the county jail about not work release, but prisoners working. We've seen them. Most of us have seen them in some kind of prison jump shoot, cleaning the roads. They're doing something. I think it's great. But then there was a movement to say that was forced labor. And how's that different from slavery? Well, the difference is that at that point the person's convicted of a crime, and so again, all these things, and that's what I think. One of the real dangers, right? I've just been thinking about this recently. Is this divide we have in the country? Of course, we know it's a danger, but the problem is, we're in these little isolated circles, and all we really do is hear each other, who already pretty much agree on things. And sometimes it's very good, not sometimes, it's all the time good to hear the other side. The problem is that when the other side is batshit crazy, then you've got, are you really going to?
That is the problem now. There's a definite difference now.
Right, but my point is, I used to tell my students, I had very few pearls of wisdom because I'm as fucked up as everybody else, just trying to get through this life. But I said, really seek out people who have a different opinion than yourself. Now, again, this is prior to Trump and all of that. I said, but because three things can happen and they're all good. Number one, you could, by hearing another argument, you might figure that you are really wrong. And that's good. You don't want to be wrong, right?
You don't want to be wrong, but if you're going to be an honest
can
person,
be. Yeah. The second thing that could happen is you're not sure. You went in, I'm pretty sure about this. So you go back and do some more research, and that's always good too. And when we say research, that word, it has really been perverted by the MAGA people. I did my research. Yeah, you went and Googled something. That's not research. Or you went and listened to Alex Jones.
Right.
That's not research, okay? But true research, and then, of course, the third and the best thing is that you realize you were absolutely right, and they're just full of horse dookie, and you don't have to deal with it.
And I think, Dave, if we can put a stop sign on that argument for a second, that's part of the problem, that when you see that they're buying into the propaganda, you see this all around the world, in fascist governments, this is a real problem. So when we say, can you have a conversation, like Bill Maher was suggesting we should have the conversation, I don't think that is the way to go in this particular case.
Well,
what are we going to do? They're going to convince us that they're right?
No, and we're not going to convince them either. I think what happens though is, again, sort of like the risk of killing an innocent person who's been falsely accused and probably falsely found guilty of the crime. By not talking to anyone out there and the others, you never get a chance to hear a good idea from the other side. But I understand, well, again, 99% of them would not be good ideas. Okay. So is it worth your time? Also, most of the people, I'd love for somebody to chime in and correct me here, because I'm going to say something. I think I'm right, but I'm not real sure. So I'd be really interested in anybody's help out there. I think one of the problems that we have in discussing politics and the divisions we have is because they're done with people we know or our family members, right? When's the last time you've talked about politics with someone you didn't know? Well, I don't remember, I mean, you don't walk up to somebody and say, hey, what's your Oh, let's talk. So there's already this built-in kind of maybe animosity or the idea of how could my son...
Or this anticipation that somebody may say something political, or just by looking at them and seeing how they dress, right. Like you say, you know what, I can't get even to begin to get a discussion because I know that they're a Trumper.
Right. Yeah, and so that adds to it, right? I mean, if two people get together and you volunteer, like, I'm liberal, okay, and somebody says I'm conservative and I'm a Trumper. We don't know one another. Let's go in a room and talk. That might be better than doing it with your mother or your father or your grandfather, or your uncle or your brother or your best friend. And I'm sure we've all done that too. We look on our Facebook page or our social media page, and we see people. We say, "Man, what the hell happened to them?" Based on their remarks,
right?
And they probably say, "Well, what the hell happened to you?" Based on your remarks. So let's kind of wrap up the Biden thing, which I think is the Biden report. So I'm going to give it a thumbs up because it's the right thing to do as a father. And quite honestly, Joe Biden will finish out. He's a lame duck president. Okay. So what he should act at this point, I think, is act as a father and protect his son. And so I'm going to say, until I can be convinced otherwise, I'm going to say it was a good move because nothing is going to stop Trump from doing what he's going to do.
That he's going to protect them from what they're going to do is pile it on, and that isn't fair.
No, I understand that.
He can explain that.
And I agree that. I think, and of course there is that thinking, I'm not backing down now, there is that thinking that you'd only accept a pardon if you were guilty, and that is completely fallacious. That is as fallacious as saying people who take the Fifth Amendment are automatically guilty. It's not true. What could happen is, as you just said, Brian, there'd be no fairness from the right. They're going to strike back whomever we can, and whoever they can strike back to, and whenever they can, and whatever they can do. And that seems to be the tone. And certainly we'll end up talking tonight a little bit about some of these appointees. But I would say that some of the nominees that Trump has done, well, first of all, you'd be hard pressed to find somebody worse than some of the nominees he's chosen. Absolutely. For the positions he's named them in. That's number one. Number two, it is clear from their previous remarks that they are ready for vengeance, or they don't like what has been done before. I don't think RFK, is going to come out with vengeance, but he's going to be. It may be the same thing because if he gets his way, we won't even be a vaccinated nation. So I think two things we need to talk about. Let's jump in now. All this news swirling around and what have you, any new nominees or any particular problems you saw this week or came about? I saw a couple that are different than this time last week.
My only point with any of the appointees is it sounds like he is going to have control over them. So whatever appointee you have, you can essentially say it's just a branch of Trump, because I think they have to discuss it with Trump. And I think Trump is hands-on. It'll be run just like his shitty business. He's going to control them. So even though it is Kash Patel or or whomever, even if he gets Hulk Hogan, I think at this point it doesn't really matter. He's just going to tell him, do this, do that, and that's all I want you to do, and that's the way they'll play the game. I mean, do you really think that they'll just do things on their own, what they want to do?
Oh, of course not. Of course not. But, think about this. This is why it's so perverse, facing the prospect of Donald Trump returning to the White House, is the fact that all presidents appoint people that they're comfortable with for the most part. Now, I know we could go back to Lincoln's, the cabinet of your rivals, but he did that for a reason too, to keep him close. I mean, he believed in that,
right.
To keep your friends close and your enemies closer. And it actually worked out well for him and the country in terms of doing that. But, pretty much it's the idea that you want, think about it, Brian. If you were going to be, nobody's going to make you or me president of the United States.
No.
But let's say we get to be in charge of a pretty big club or something, and you get to name the people that you're going to work with. You would get your friends, right, or people that thought like you. And so again, I would try to tell people you're not just electing Donald Trump. You're electing every aspect of your life, because he'll put people in charge of it. And you're electing the Supreme Court. And in a certain way, you're even saying, I think Donald Trump should have more run in my life. So I think I want him to also decide who should be my congressman. I mean, because an endorsement from the president goes a long way, whether it's Donald Trump, Joe Biden, FDR, it doesn't matter. The thing that I said finds disturbing here, and I just, again, first, let me say that having lived in Washington, D.C. now for 13 years, or 3 metro stops from D.C., it is true. There is the Beltway bubble, and people inside Washington think differently than everyone else. They really do, okay? Today, in all of Philadelphia, probably there's a lot of rejoicing, in that win, the Eagles. Philadelphia is a sports town, right?
Yes.
In New York, they watch the stock market. It's a stock market town. In L.A., they read Variety and watch the movie and TV grosses. Well, in Washington, D.C., it's politics, 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 politics. And it also, though, is not just politics, it's jobs and livelihoods. And I talked to somebody who lives in my building, and he's a 33-year veteran, relatively high-ranking in the military at the Pentagon. And I asked him, I said, what's the feeling there? He said, it's completely unnerving. People are just kind of freezing. They don't know what to do. They're worried about, their jobs. They're worried about, will there be a loyalty oath? And think about this. I mean, Trump has said, and a number of his appointees have said, they believe that there should be a loyalty oath to the president. And that's not what we have.
Right.
We have a loyalty oath to the Constitution. But Trump has already demonstrated that whenever it is to his advantage, he will disregard the Constitution.
Right. The Constitution will mean nothing as long as you have that Supreme Court there.
Well, yeah. And it wouldn't anyway, I don't think. They could, but the damage could already be done. Right. And so, would it be firing? Maybe not. But think about this. Pretty much, you're going to go to work on tomorrow, and pretty secure you got a job, right? I mean, well, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of people in this area who aren't sure.
Right, they aren't sure about January, that's for sure.
And they don't know, what the responsibilities will be. They're starting to look at each other like, will it be like in the 50s? Will it be like the Lavender Scare? Will it be like the Red Scare, where you turn on someone and report them, and then they're handled that way? And we know that there were 10,000 gay men and women during the Lavender Scare who lost their jobs because and the concern was so interesting, Brian, because they twist it. Fascists and authoritarians always twist things. It wasn't that they were gay. That was the subtext. The subtext was that they shouldn't be in government because they could be blackmailed for being gay, right? So that reason no longer exists. But so Patel has already said he wants to clean house. He said that he believes that one of the FBI's biggest things should go after traitors, and he's defined traitor as being anyone who expresses opposition to the president. Now, that's not what a traitor is. Look at a damn dictionary and then follow it up with the Constitution. Mm-hmm. Now, another thing that's scary, and I've been doing this for a period of time now, especially since Trump won, there are a lot of little, not loopholes, there are a lot of little laws floating around out there that haven't ever been taken off the books, but they haven't been used, but they can be put right back in, right? The Palmer Act, the Espionage Act,
right?
All these things are just waiting for a person to pick them up and go. Now, before we just say, let's go.
So, are you suggesting we could see like Palmer type raids again?
I would. It wouldn't surprise me.
Right.
I mean, I got to say this. Two things about Donald Trump. I've been wrong about everything I've said about his ability to win every time. There were at least 9 instances in his first run in 2016, the leading being, you can grab him by the pussy. I said, he's done. He's done. He's done. And obviously he wasn't. And obviously put in the White House. This time, I thought it was even clearer because he is diminished capacity since 2016. I don't care if you're his biggest supporter, you have to acknowledge that in those 8 years, he is not the same person that he was then. And he wasn't much then, so to lower it. We know that he doesn't like opposition. I mean, obviously, not many of us do, but we don't know to what extreme he will take it. So are the Palmer raids possible? Of course. And also there'll be people who will benefit from this. You know who's going to want that? Think about this. Who's going to want that? The private prison industry. And Trump favors privatization of prisons. So, of course, if I'm making money and I have 100 prisoners and you're going to give me 100, I'm going to take those other 100, probably double them up, make conditions worse, and go. So, it's not just Trump. It's where we find ourselves. We know.
I'm going to ask you this again.
Yeah, sure.
We're going back into old territory.
That's fine. Well, you have to.
But,
because it's.
I think we keep forgetting, look where we are now. A criminal has been elected president of the United States. And this just, to me, still is that underlying thing that goes right under everything, is that we have a criminal.
I would agree.
People accepted that. And now we have no idea what we're headed. We know it's going to be bad, whatever it is. It's going. Yeah. And now you got a guy who wants revenge. So no matter what we talk about, we still have to keep in the back of our minds that, again, it relates to the whole thing about, why I don't listen to Bill Maher on this crap, is that this guy and people they've gone crazy.
Or if somebody's, crazy, I will say this. They've listed a number of things that are no deterrence for them. You just mentioned one. It is okay for a convicted criminal, to be president of the United States. It is not. It is okay for the president of the United States to mock a disabled person. Mm. It is not. It is okay to call the press the enemy of the people. The press makes a slew of mistakes, and trust me, I'm not defending them right now. I will defend individual reporters.
Well, you're defending a free press. There's nothing wrong with that.
And that's what you're doing.
And a rapist, and rapists in general.
And people are saying, well, how did Kennedy with his 27 affairs? Isn't that for Trump? That's a badge of honor. Mm-hmm. Trump might be mad, that he's only 52 ahead of Kennedy. I don't know. It's okay for a man who lied 30,000 times. And I think the actual number, somebody correct me, I think it's 30,179 times in 4 years.
He can't tell the truth. I think that's the greater part of it. When does he ever tell the truth? Except when he says what he's going to do to somebody. You know, I mean, that's about it.
Yeah. Now, so is America a different place than it was in 2016? And the answer is yes. Is it in a better place than it was in 2016? And I'm going to say on either side, the answer is no. Because obviously the MAGA is angry and upset with the way government has been running, right? We're upset with the way we think government, and with some vindication, we think government's going to be running. We're certainly not going to get together anymore.
No.
And I agree. We've said this all along. And I mean, I did come into it. I really did come into it as a teacher and an educator. I always thought there was a high ground where if you could reach that higher ground, you could debate principles. Now, remember, when it was Paideia? In fact, you were chairperson of that for a while. And for anybody who doesn't know, Paideia is a Greek way of kind of teaching school. And it was like they had these little mottos or little things you do. And it's
Socratic seminars, basically.
Yes, Socratic seminars. And for anybody who's not versed in that jargon, Socrates just went around asking questions.
That's all it was.
That's really what it is. It's questions. And then questions. And that I had no problem with when we put that in, because that's the way I was taught. Some people did, and that's understandable. But one of those slogans, I don't know if you remember, Brian, was argue with positions, not with people. But that's really hard to do. It really is.
That it's changed.
Now, the Supreme Court, somebody just put up there, I didn't see whom real quickly.
That was
the idea,
global solidarity.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Hey, global. Took the guardrails away from executive power. Two of the worst decisions that the Supreme Court has made in my lifetime, and I'm going to leave Roe v. Wade alone. That would certainly be up there. But the two worst, I think, for America in my lifetime, one is Citizens United, where you cannot limit money in government. And even worse than that, as bad as that is giving almost virtual immunity to the President of the United States, knowing full well that you have a vengeful man, whether he's your best friend or not. That man is a vengeful man coming in and will tend to abuse that power. The government has made laws that kill Magna Carta since Patriot Act 2002. I agree, global. And of course, what happened there is we really messed up. We really did mess up after 9/11. We really did. It was kind of understandable a little bit. We were angry, we were scared, we were all this stuff. But we put a lot of things in. For example, the money. Come on. The money came from Saudi Arabia. The money didn't come from the places we claimed. But because we need Saudi oil, we need them as a balancer in the region, we went after others. There's no way, don't we learn the lessons of history? Apparently not. You're not going to take Afghanistan. You're not going to take Iraq and stabilize it. It's not going to be done unless you're planning to mobilize 50% of your forces and put them in there.
Good question here.
What's going to happen?
It's really not that absurd if you think about it.
No.
Because we're small potatoes, but it doesn't matter.
Anagaya, look, Anagaya, I'm going to say something and it sounds like, oh man, he's full of shit or whatever. Look, it's this simple. For me, I'm not brave. I'm not reckless. Well, my wife would say I'm reckless. But this is it. This is for real. And, and it's kind of a natural position. And somebody can say, you're full of shit.
Remember, in the Soviet Union and in Russia, to go after, you can hold up one little poster and you're done. Because they see you as a threat.
Of course, so one thing I will say, that took them a ways to get there, number one. It didn't happen overnight. And also, as we've had before, while I respect your opinions, Brian, because you are a Russian expert, they have no remembrance of democracy because they've never had it.
Right.
Everybody in America has remembrance of democracy. I mean, it's been here until now. So I think that's one thing. The second thing
but the problem is I don't think many people know really what democracy means.
But
no, I mean, yes, 60 million people know, but
No. I understand what you said, but it's still there. I mean, the ideas are there. For me personally, I would continue the fight. In fact, I'm doing it on 3 or 4 other levels, which I'll be divulging. Not that we take anything away from this here, because I live here. Some things that we're putting together right here to fight Trump. And for me, I mean, 1968 was a real eye opener. For me, that's kind of when I turned. And so I spent, next 4 years, doing 4 or 5 things, getting high, of course, and getting a college degree, of course, and playing music, of course, but also devoted a lot of my time to protesting. So it's almost second nature to me. I also, to a fault, and if you could ask any boss of mine ever, I probably take anti-authoritarianism too far, maybe sometimes, but it's just it's my default. Automatically, I don't respect people who get in positions of power until they demonstrate they behave in a way that's deserving, of that respect. Someone says you should respect the president. Fuck no. I should respect him, if he does the right thing, not just because
he works
he's there.
For you.
Yeah, and of course,
story.
Donald Trump doesn't believe that, and that's part of the problem. So no, I mean, now on the Sunday night when they're knocking at the door here with the, maybe I'll change my mind, but I don't think so. What is it? Was it Thoreau that said, "In unjust times, the only just place for a man to find himself is in prison"? I think there's some truth. I mean, the people that can stand
Eugene
up,
Debs.
Eugene V. Debs. I mean, he spent his whole life, and he's, there are people who say a loser. I respect Debs. I mean, I really do. To follow that, and then also, I think, for me, there's clearly 2 people in the world that are more important than anybody else, and they are my grandson and my granddaughter. And so I not only fight for me, I fight for them. I fight for the America that they're entitled to. I would fight for the world. Now, before you say, oh, there's so much to fight for that, if you believe climate is the number 1 danger to the world, I couldn't argue with you. But I feel kind of helpless. I mean, I do what little bit I can. I don't, I'm not a scientist. I don't know how to advise. I don't know how to do that. So I'm not going to fight. I'm not. I mean, if there's a protest and you need me there, I would go, and I've been. But that's not my thing. But politics is my thing, and do I think it'll matter? I don't know. I said earlier, I think one of the key tells will be if Brian ever stops doing what he's doing.
No, I'm just trying to find a statement where my cousin was going to turn me into Trump for being a communist and a Nazi.
Well, you are, but that's beside the point.
Example for students.
Okay, let's stop there. I know how you feel about your cousin. I understand that. So let's not go too deep in it. But do you really think he would do that, Brian?
I have enough on him.
No. I said you honestly. No.
Hold on. I can't take it back. Look, he got really angry at his nephew, and his nephew got some Flyers tickets about 10 years ago, and they got in a big fight, and he called up the Spectrum at the time, and he got him 86th. So he did do some things that, he's stupid.
Well, no, I'm not. But see, isn't it interesting?
No, he might. If he feels that I can't, he's a stupid man. So I can't say for sure.
Well, now
I'd like to be able to tell you, you're right, Dave. He wouldn't do it.
I'm not saying that. I'm asking you.
I then think what you have, he's capable of it.
Okay, then you have a hard decision.
Yes, and the guy he said that. Yes. I don't know how somebody can be a Nazi and a communist at the same time, but
it doesn't matter. But what I'm saying is, then you have it harder because you know that there's somebody out there,
yes,
who said, you will do that. I don't. I mean, if you were to list my enemies, we would be here a long time tonight. All right, but I don't know that that. I can't say they would. I can't say they wouldn't.
Well, he doesn't watch this show, just so you know. He doesn't even have a computer. But he's the type that would get somebody else. I know he has friends who are just criminals, and they would do something like that, and that's the problem.
Well, then again, let's get back. It always comes back right now. You know where it comes back to? The little memes that come out. What would you have done during slavery? What would you have done during the Holocaust?
I think we know just by what we're doing now. What would we would have done something, because I've always been kind of like the main meal. Even when I was in high school, I wasn't a bad kid at all. Never caused any problems. But I was never afraid to talk politically, and that was always scary to people. So I know what I would have done. I'd be willing to give up. I think there is a point. It depends. Look at how they post on Facebook, or they post here. Are you talking something about yourself? Are you talking about what's better for society? And that's the type of person that's going to give it up. Like John Reed said, there's things worth dying for, and there's something worth living for. I think I would have done the right thing, and you would too.
Now we got a chance to say we would. Now I know. I'll give you an example of
John Brown.
Yeah, not making it on that level, but when I was a young reporter, I worked for the local hometown newspaper, and it was controlled by the publisher. It was self-owned. One man owned it, and he was it. He was the paper, and we got paid a pittance, and so we got together with the other departments, and we would have it's kind of just a courtesy meeting. But we would have this like sham where one representative from each department would go in and sit with the publisher. And we vowed out there, if he didn't give us a 5% raise, we would walk out of the room.
And by the way, I want to just add a quick comment here. The Stasi were the worst. They were worse than the KGB. The Stasi were horrible.
Oh, yeah. But what happens is, so we go into that meeting. He said, well, not been a good year. I can offer you 2%. I stood up and said, thank you, and walked out. You know how many of the other 11 walked out?
0.
None. So, that's, I understand they're and that's a lot different than facing a gulag that Trump would do. And a part of me still says, look, he's already waffling on his tariffs. Have you been, I don't follow that because tariffs to me are just stupid. But already, we're getting reports from Canada and Mexico that he's backing off, and he's not going to do it with. Now, whether he's just not going to do it with them and do it with China, Trump is he doesn't have any core.
He can't do it to everybody, because then his own people will come after him.
Well, that
so that's what we want.
So right now, again, I said this last time, and I'll say it for a while now. The way I use an analogy. We'll come back to that in just a moment. Global, I want to tackle that. What we see right now, I feel, is this. So I'll repeat it just because it keeps me clarified in my mind. The position we find ourselves right now is it's Friday, it's late Friday. The doctor's office has called us and said the doctor wants to see you first thing Monday. Your test results came back.
Right.
Can you tell? I'm not at liberty to say, but the doctor wants to see you on Monday.
Worst.
That whole from Friday to Monday morning, you are a basket case. I don't care who you are. Right. But come Monday, when you get in there, when you hear it, you begin to figure out a kind of a surprise. A person I've known for a long time, husband and wife. The wife this weekend, kind of sad news. She said she revealed that her husband has stage 4 cancer, and it's not good. But he's fighting it, and we've seen those battles off and on. So right now, I think it's really hard. The second thing that's kind of undermining this, and there are a lot of articles out there saying the anti-Trump movement has been defeated. The anti-Trump movement has been deflated. The anti-Trump movement is down. And I think there's some truth to that. People, and I honestly think this too, and I might have been a little guilty of this, people really thought that the American people would come through and recognize the difference between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. And they did. They preferred the white man. They preferred the white over the black. They preferred the man over the woman. They let their hatred, vengeance, fear of change rule. I'd love to know how many people that are anti-trans have ever even met a trans
Right.
person, have
Good
even
point.
encountered one.
Right.
I guarantee you that number is very, very small. And I've never, ever, and maybe somebody in the audience has had a conversation where they could say that. I really have never understood, outside of the religious arguments, which shouldn't be there anyway, but even that's a misinterpretation of the Bible, that God is anti-gay. Why there is such this hatred of gay men. What do I care? I mean, I would care very much. Okay, I would care very much, but I would understand if my wife came to me. We've been married 51 years, and she said I made a mistake. I've discovered my true self, and I'm a lesbian. Sure, that's personal. I mean, but short of that, I don't see what difference it makes what anybody else, what their sexuality is. And so I've just, but again, and there's been people that, they psychologically, those who react the strongest if they're male have, lingering.
Well, don't you think, Dave, and I ran across this speaking with one of my Russian friends. She's very old school and she believes the Z propaganda. She asked me why Kamala Harris lost, and I said, well, I can't tell you specifically, but I can tell you this, that most white men don't like powerful women, and she was also black, so that was another problem for them. And she said, well, we believe that women have weaker central nervous systems, and men should be in control in Russia. So, and this goes back to the Russian Orthodox Church, which goes back to again, I know you're not going to like this, folks, but the church themselves, there's this patriarchal idea that has continued.
I'm going to ask tonight, and I know that we even have listeners here that are devout Catholics. Where the fuck did God come and say no women? Where? Is it in the Bible? I've looked at it and I don't see it.
Well, so even if that were because the Bible itself is such a problem.
Well, no, but what I'm saying, but I understand that. But the idea of it is immediately the church and the world has been a patriarchy. You know what's pretty cool? Wonder Woman. She was an Amazon. That's the route. We should go. But again, Brian, I also think too that it's really funny. In this election, I think there were two competing ideas, but people held them both. One is most people have a tremendous fear of change. And so where's that fear of change come in? Oh my God, the blacks are winning. Oh my God, the immigrants are eating cats and dogs. Oh my God, my son didn't get his promotion because it went to a woman. So that's the one side of it. Really fear of change. And then they demanded a change because they said, this is the Biden, this is the Harris, this is the Democrats doing it. And it's not. It's a wave in society that,
it's a reality that people have finally faced up to. This is what it is. This is the way people are. And now they don't want to accept them. They don't want to let them live the way they want to live. It's because and again, it gets back to this Judeo-Christian, and you can include Islam in there, this idea that, this is the way it's done. The man is the power. And
that does go, Brian, that also
happens
goes
to animals too.
That also goes to explain a little bit about the increased Hispanic vote, of males. It wasn't tremendous.
Right. But you're right.
But that's a very patriarchal. And you throw on top of that abortion, which, again, I guess maybe in a stretch, I guess people believe if they condone the sin, it's the same as having the sin. To me, that's just dumb. And I really like Jimmy Carter. And certainly he's proved I was not mistaken because he's our greatest ex-president ever. But I don't know if you remember, Brian, when he had that I've lusted in my heart many times, the Playboy interview. And he sort of made that equal to acting on the lust. And I don't find that.
No, because you cannot deny your things that you have no control over.
But I think there are people that feel that if I don't stop abortion, then I'm part of that sin. And I don't see that. I don't see that. If you didn't have the abortion,
the problem is they cannot account for the subject of suffering and not suffering. It's actually more suffering to let the child live and not know whether it's going to suffer, rather than not suffering. Because an animal that's 2 years of age has a more vested consciousness than an embryo. Okay, so if you want to worry about killing, you might want to worry about the turkey you ate. Because there's a Holocaust in your stomach on Thanksgiving.
Well, the other thing would be too, if you're really pro-life, then if the child is born, you agree to help take care of it.
It's not going to happen,
and we don't. That's the thing, and we don't.
Which means they don't give a shit. It's about control. It's about control, and it goes back to these religious freaks. And this is what Hitchens had warned us about. It's a poison. It's toxic. And yes, there may be individuals who may behave better because of it, but I don't like anything built on a lie, and it is a lie.
Well, that
as far as evidence can point,
as far as scientific evidence, and of course, what someone would argue on the other side is, well, it's faith. You have to have faith. Well, okay.
Well, that could be optimism. I mean, I don't.
No, I'm just saying. No, you can show somebody scientific proof, correct? They can either accept it or reject it. That's what makes it scientific.
Yeah, but I'm not going to have a sample of one. I'm going to have a sample of
what I'm just saying. Even it doesn't matter.
Tiller Green.
But what I'm saying is, you cannot show anyone a sample of faith, because faith is an individual thing, right? So you may have it, you can't give it to anyone, right? It's just not the same thing. So, when somebody says to me, well, you got to have faith, okay, but what about if you don't? Then where are you left?
Right.
It's just not. And again, you and I part company on this, and it's fine. I take the same thing with Christianity as I do with a gun, a computer, the Bible, part of Christianity. In and of itself, a thing is not bad. It's how the people use it or abuse it that makes it bad.
Right, and if it's built upon falsities, you can't go with it. I mean, I know it's in certain cases it actually makes it worse.
But I'm just saying it doesn't matter, because whether it's built on falsity or real, it's the actions that come from it.
I understand that.
That's all. And it's not a huge difference. I mean, but it just is a difference.
And I think you make a good point. I'm just saying, in the end, even if it turns out, it's better to know the absolute truth as far as we can know it.
I know.
More than
but you know what,
that.
You know what I think too. And again, this is not a bash the Christians hour, although.
No, this is just religion we're talking. I mean, I don't want anybody to think I'm centering on one or the other. You could make the point that the Christians are more like the Old Testament and the Jews are more like the New Testament, even though it makes no sense. Yeah. This is why it all makes no sense. But we said to even argue about it is ridiculous.
We've said before, and I think this bears repeating, that anytime you join an organization where there's an authority figure at the top, so that's the church, then you've already relinquished your Sailor the AIDS epidemic again. Now, Anti-Guy, I'm gonna really be fascinated with that. Did you see that guy? I forget his name right now. I should have written it down. We got the CDC is also the head of the CDC is an anti-vaxxer now, who will be if he gets approved. So Kennedy, we know that the worm ate a little bit of his brain, and again, being a recovered drug addict and alcoholic myself, I don't want to disparage, but if he didn't, he doesn't use heroin right now, but he did for a long time, and I would need to sit down and talk to him about his recovery and see where he is. But it's certainly, if you look at what has happened with the vaccines, measles, mumps, forget about the big ones. We've almost eradicated them pretty much as a social disease because we get vaccinated, because schools say. Now, Trump will not be able to do all he says, but he said, and it's in Project 2025, which he disavowed, but that was bullshit, that the president will not give money to schools that require vaccinations. Okay. Well, that may be immaterial, because if he were, and it's not him. Remember, he says a lot of things he can't do. Let's get it straight. He cannot abolish the Department of Education unless Congress gives him separate powers that he does not have now. It is Congress which will decide whether the Department of Education stays or goes. However,
it won't matter.
Well, what do you mean by that?
I'm just saying, David. I think this is where people are going to start accusing me of getting a little bit too far off in the thinking, and I've been very pragmatic. Everybody knows me. I'm very pragmatic.
No, that's true.
Most of the issues, but this thing we could really slip into something where it will not matter.
See what you said, Brian. And again, you're looking at a situation and drawing a fairly accurate view of what you think will happen, right?
Right, and I don't know that's going to happen. I mean, I'm not.
And it could be worse. Think about this. Right. It could be worse than anything you imagine, and it can't be good
because when you have, we know what happens in crowds. Things get crazy in crowds, and now he's got support. And as long as he has that support, I think he's willing to take that chance. And then, though you say Congress, they're so weak. I mean, they will do exactly what he wants. So this is why I don't know that anything matters in terms of law.
I'm not so sure about that, Brian. If you are a Republican in a swing district, you have to be a little bit careful because you've got to try to balance, getting elected again. Now, and it's so close that a shift of a few congressmen on either side or a shift of a few senators on either side can stop. It can't bring things to bear, but look at the past 4 years, even back into the Obama administration, how nothing got done because there were enough Republicans to stop it, right?
By the way, I'm going to interject real quick with minus Lisa. As much as my wife and I watch YouTube a lot, and I'm sure most of you out there do, they're saying now, at least the numbers that are coming in, it's really being taken over, not completely, but there's a majority for the conservatives on YouTube.
Well,
vis-a-vis us, so it is changing even on YouTube. This is getting scary. Yes. There's a lot of propaganda on YouTube right now. On the right side.
And of course, for what I do, I have to spend a lot of time online, researching or blowing my horn, different things, and certainly we've seen that. Brian and I were talking a little bit. We only talk a few minutes before we go on air, and we were talking about the situation with Blue Sky, which is actually growing at this point. And some days they're getting 1 million subscribers a day, but it's still dwarfed by Twitter. But what's happening is people are leaving Twitter because 2 or 3 reasons, all related. One is it has become pretty much not quite as bad as Truth Social, but pretty damn bad. It's run by Elon Musk, who in some ways, I think represents maybe an immediate danger even greater than the Supreme Court. Not in the long run. In the long run, it's the Supreme Court. Elon Musk cares about one person, and that's it. And yes, Media Lisa, you're sharing something that a lot of people have. But again, it's not so easy to give up on. I mean, I never had this many followers. I had a few, but people had like 100 or thousands of followers on Twitter. And when you go to Blue Sky, and that'll happen. Well, because actually I read an interesting column on that. I mean, not the column. I mean, just common sense. We said the trolls will go where they control the people, and not control, but where they can troll the people. And now you can't really troll liberals on Twitter because there's very few there. So now you're going to go where they are. So unless you could figure out some kind of signature move where you would demonstrate that you're a liberal, we're not. And to be honest with you, I mean, you don't want to doom scroll, but it's easy to get into. You get lost. I've had to limit, my time on it. I go on social media 3 times a day, so it's more like a job. Once in the morning, once in the afternoon, once at night. But yeah, well, one of the things that will happen, Bri, is that somebody said before, what happens to this thing? We'll either grow, and I think we will grow simply because people will need to come to a safe space. We are a safe space.
Yes,
we are.
And you can and two, we have the and that's the advantage. We do have folks who are out there, especially if you're incognito right now. Cognito, you can see that we have this interaction, and you can't get that as the group gets, larger and larger and larger. I remember I donated to Hal Sparks, and I love Hal Sparks. I think he's fantastic.
Too big.
But he's so big that you get a comment, it just flies by. Even the same thing with Stuttering John. Decent show, but at least with this show, it's kind of nice small, that we only have that many people.
Just a couple of things. The clock's running down. I thought it was very interesting this week that Trump's choice of Pete Hegseth says, and I quote, this was a direct email to him, "You are an abuser of women. That is the ugly truth, and I have no respect for any man that belittles, lies, cheats, sleeps around, and uses women for his own power and ego. On behalf of all the women, and I know it's many, you have abused in some way, I say, get some help and take an honest look at yourself." That was written by Pete's mother.
Right.
New York Times got a copy of it. It runs.
And now she's starting to walk things back a bit.
Well, she's saying, but see, there's another problem with social media. I wouldn't put that, if that were reversed, I wouldn't write about on social media about criticizing. But she did it. She meant it at the time. The indications are that he has done it, and it's that way. And now she's, I'm sure she's going to, how can a mother do that? Well, she did the right thing. She just did it in the wrong place. Then we've got, I thought this was also kind of interesting about the idea of, of nominating Patel. So Patel would replace Christopher Wray. Do you know who appointed Christopher Wray?
Trump.
And do you know how long he was appointed for?
I think, was it 10 years they're appointed? 10
years is correct. Mm-hmm. And now Trump wants to get rid of him, and he still has 3 years on his tenure. Right. So it will be interesting. So I guess the point I want to end with tonight is, yes, it looks dark. Yes, it looks gloomy. And I'm not going to tell you it's always darkest before the dawn, because sometimes the dawn is just as damn dark or darker, depending on the weather. Okay. However, what I am going to say is, don't fall victim to the fact that we've lost the war. We have not.
Right. You have to fight. You have to fight.
We have lost a big battle. Okay. Now, the war didn't end at Gettysburg, right? But the South kind of got its asses kicked there. And again, maybe that's a bad analogy because 2 years later they lose. But it's still a fight. And we got into not an argument at Thanksgiving. It was an interesting Thanksgiving. Judy, myself, and 3 gay men. That was interesting. All very learned, all government workers. So we had really some high-level discussions, which was actually very much fun. All very liberal.
That's a good Thanksgiving.
But what they were saying, and I understand, they said half America. And I say that too. It's not true, Brian. It's not half of America. It's a third of America. It's half the people that voted, but about a third didn't vote. So in other words, it's not, it looks, the numbers are in play, but there's still people out there who haven't taken a side yet. Maybe they never will, or maybe Trump will be so bad that they will come to realize that there's only one side. And if you are an American, this is very simple. I'll end with this tonight. If you are an American and you believe you are an American and you believe that you are a good person and you believe that you're a reasonable person and you believe you are a patriot, you are kidding yourself. You are not.
And I think that's a good place to end it. You are not. And that will put you in prison, Mr. Price. Give yourself 2 months.
You know what? You know what? Just kidding. No, I know. But that's so funny. But maybe like I'm delusional. But I'm not saying it wouldn't bother me. Of course, let me ask you a real quick question. Have you ever been in jail?
Never.
I have.
That's one of my biggest fears. I mean,
see, once I got in there, it wasn't so bad. I mean,
right. I just I don't believe I am the person who should ever go to jail. and I don't tend to.
Yeah, but see, that's
being a political, that's my Russian understanding. That's my greatest fear. That when
I can understand that. But what happens? Yeah, but what happens too? You are a realist, you are a pragmatist, but there's also a big streak of idealism in you.
Yes,
which is admirable.
You're right.
Which is admirable.
Very few people understand that. I have this we're
down
by 20 points in the fourth quarter, but I still have this feel like you can imagine us winning. I haven't had that.
And I think again to everyone, I'm not an expert, but if I've learned a few things, I think in my 72 years. Judy and I were having this conversation as recently as a few hours ago. If you just sit there and do nothing, you will feel worse.
Yes.
So find out what it is you can do. If it's protest. If it's fund. If it's join. If it's support unions. Whatever it is, whatever you can do, you will feel better for doing it.
Right. And one last thing for me is that one of the events in my life watching sports was watching Dave Waddle from Bowling Green come back to win the gold medal in the 800. It looked like he was not going to make it. He was in last place. So, that's the idealist in me. Okay. But there's also the pragmatist. And Dave knows it. So, Dave, thank you so much. Appreciate it. We'll do this next week. And if anything unbelievable happens, we'll be on again.
Ladies and gentlemen, an exciting announcement. Next week, I will be in the Gambling Center of America next Sunday night. We'll be coming live from Las Vegas. I'll see if I can round up some showgirls for Brian.
Yeah, well, just don't hang out with my cousin, all right? That's all I ask. Okay?
I'm still going to try. I'm still going to try to get his phone number.
No, he's an asshole. So there you go. All right, Dave. All right. Be well.
To Judy. Thanks, everyone.
Yes.
We appreciate and thanks for your input. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. We'll see you next time. And join.